What's going on, guys? You guys know this video is gonna be serious since I have my tripod. Finally found it. Alright guys, so you are here because you want to know what you need to know when you're buying an S14 or 240. It's gonna be mainly about like the S14 because I have the S14 chassis and I don't have an S13 chassis, so there might be some things I might miss out if you're trying to buy an S13. But first, you might be a college student. You're broke, so you're on a budget, or you're probably a guy that convinced his wife to actually let you buy a 240 or a project car. You need to know your price point. And how this video is going to go is like basic stuff first, and then we're going to talk about, if you're buying a very good, well-kept 240, what to look out for. Alright guys, so you finally decided to buy yourself a 240, either Zinke or Cookie. So let's start with the basic stuff. Obviously, you want to check if the paint's okay, if the car's in good shape, no dents, no crashes, stuff like that. So let me start taking you around what I did when I bought my 240. Alright, first things first, you obviously check the pictures on on Craigslist, Facebook Market, whatever you're using to look at pictures. Look for dents, look for scratches. Like when I was buying my 240, I knew there was a dent right here. It's not scratched or anything, it's just like indented in, so that gave me some room to play with the price. Obviously look all over the car and check for scratches or anything. For Zinke, definitely check the lip. If you have an SE model, if you have a lip, if they're selling it with the lip, make sure it's in good shape. These things are not sold anymore. I mean, you could probably find a used one, but brand new one, don't even try, because they're not even out there anymore. And when it comes down to a Zinke front end, you want to check if it has the covers on the fog lights, if you have fog lights. If you don't have fog lights, don't even worry about it. But the covers that I'm talking about, I know I have the fog lights, but there's a cover that goes on here. Those don't exist either anymore, so check for that. Also, you want to check for emblems. Check if you still have your Nissan emblem up there. Check if you have your 240SX emblem right there, or your SE emblem, even the Nissan emblem on your taillights. I mean, those are nitpicky things, but like I said, those are things to look out for when you're buying your 240. If you want it in good condition, if you're planning on drifting it, those things don't matter. On the Cookie, the Nissan emblem is going to be even more attached, and it's going to be smaller on the tail lights. Like I said, check for any dents, any indication of anything bad. This goes for any car. Check the lines of the car, Check if something's off, if they're not measuring right. So far so good. My fenders are rolled. I believe they're rolled because when I bought the car, it had a bigger set of wheels on it. And since we're talking about body work on the car, might as well check your VIN number. Ask them for a VIN number before you even go there. Check clean title, rebuild title. You obviously want a clean title, and you want to go and run the VIN. There's free VIN checkups online everywhere, and you could check to see if the car's been in an accident, how many owners it had, things like that. Those are important things to check before you even go and check the car. I should have mentioned that first. Okay, so after you're done checking the whole body work of the car, check if it has any cracks or if the bumper's sagging, stuff like that, like general body work stuff. You want to check your tires, if they have meat on them. You want to check your brakes, what kind of brakes. I'm going to go into deep with all that, the brakes and the motor and the transmission later, but we're just checking the body of the car right now to see if you even have a good chassis. So let's go underneath here and check for rust, important things like that, the rails that actually help you lift up the car and stuff like that. So I know that it's probably awkward and weird for some people to go and buy a car and get on the ground and actually check underneath the car. Hopefully the light's better. You want to check the rails on the car, see if it's rusty. These are the rails right here. That's one rail, and then there's another rail on the other side, equal length. You want to check if it's dented in or if it has rust. You want to check the whole chassis underneath as much as you can. Get a camera underneath here, just like how I'm doing, to check for any suspicious work, any bondo or weird stuff like that. Now the rails that I'm talking about are this. Yes, it is a little rusty, but I have a story on this. So, if you're buying a Zinke and you're planning on doing a Cookie conversion, you have to check the fenders. You gotta check the bumper, the lights, and the fenders on the Zinke first, before you think, oh, just swap it out. It's not that easy. You want to check if it's easy to take out. Like me, I do want to change the Zenki look, but at the same time I fall in love with it. But these two are bolts, 10mm bolts that actually were bent up because whoever had this car before, the other two owners, pretty sure one of them was inexperienced and used the jack and bent this towards up, and I couldn't get to the bolts. I found my way. I don't know if I post the video or I'm going to post it, because I needed to tuck the wire harness underneath here so my 18-inch wheels wouldn't rub against the wire or the hood latch cable. So the hood latch cable is what controls you to open the hood, and that was kind of rubbing against this, and you don't want that because if that's gone, you're gonna have a hard time opening your hood. On the Kuki, actually, the bumper brackets are not an issue. They're still for sale. They still have them. But on the Zenki, they're discontinued. I actually did make my own bracket. I don't know if you... Comment below if you actually want to see how I did my own bumper brackets. It's actually quite simple if you have at least one of them. Because if you don't have any of them, you're going to have to use a lot more imagination than I did. Well, actually, since I was talking about the wiring harness, that's one thing to check if they've done that already before. I kind of zip tied mine on above, so it actually doesn't, you know, rub against anything. It has enough clearance. You know, you want to check if that's loose, dangling, or just on the OEM position, because see these two holes right here? The harness used to be right about here, and the harness is now above there. So one thing to check. Also check if it has the rain guards. It's not always like this. It's not always like opened. So it has a black thing that goes around the whole car. So the other side has it. Let me show you. Right here, that's your rain guard. It's kind of hard with this camera to see, but it's a plastic thing that doesn't let you see inside. It kind of goes halfway. They cut it off over here. So let's go to the inside and talk a little bit about that. Alright guys, so now we're in the interior mode. So, you know, when you're a college student or someone that's on a budget, I guess this won't really matter that much unless, you know, you care about AC and stuff. Obviously check that. This is more of just checking all the rattles and stuff that might cause rattles or broken pieces, price points, stuff like that. So let's start off and talk about these two pieces. When I bought my car, it had like the big screen radio, and this was cracked up. I was like, okay, no big deal. I'll just buy a new one. But things start adding up. You know, check for loose pieces like this. Like this is loose for me still. It doesn't rattle though, but those are good things to check for. Check if this is loose. Check if that's loose. Even your shifter bezel, check if it's loose. It has two clips on here. You know, check if they're still there. This one has a broken clip. That's why it's still loose. But my point here is, this stuff it's going to cost you money. Like, I think this one's 60. I think this one's 100, or might be 60. This one's definitely 100. So, you know, all those things add up. So you might want to bargain with the guys. Like, listen, you know, this stuff isn't good. It's broken. Let me work with the price. And another big thing, window switches. Every 240SX owner, especially the S14 guys, I don't know if S13 has the same issue. They probably do. These things are rare. Trying to find these window switches are hella rare. Like, trying to find these, and even if you find it, they're going to charge you a lot, because if they're not, either they don't work right or something's up. And so make sure this whole panel right here works. And then the other thing is, check the bezel. See if it's still attached. Take the little cap off. See if the screw's there. And if the screw's there, but there's a giant hole not keeping this in place, then there's a problem there. Because each one of these is going to cost you like 30 bucks. It's not going to work. Especially those eBay sellers. They be trying to sell you the bezel, but it's broken on the bottom, so it's pointless. It's pointless to buy them. You know, same goes with the glove box. Check if, you know, it's still attached. If you open it, it doesn't fall off. You know, those are key things to look into a 240 to, you know, mess with the price. Obviously, they're going to be like, oh, you know, it's a drift car or whatever, but, you know, it's still a car nonetheless. That's why I'm like, if you're just planning on drifting this car, I guess those things don't matter. But obviously, check your dash. One of the big things that I wanted this car for was the dash, because no cracks at all. Clean dash, you know, check every single area, for cracks. You know, that's a big thing. Obviously, you're gonna ask more for a crackless dash because they're super rare. You should check first is, you can see that I just moved the seat. And the reason why I do that is because you want to check for water leaks. Obviously, I don't have a sunroof, so don't have problems there. You obviously want to check the sunroof if you do have one for leaks or rust. But my car did have a leak at first, so, you know, it kind of, when it rains, water kind of settled in here, and you can feel that if it's cold or wet or damp, even the car's going to smell damp as well. You know, check your driver's side as well. Other thing is, check your seats. You know, any rips or tears. Check if the back seat works. How that works is that you pull one side and then the other, and then it comes down. Check for any gaps. You know, check if it still has the caps. You know, that's for originality. Check the rear deck lid. See if it's stable, if it's missing any clips or something. I mean, if the guy lets you, or if the girl lets you, whoever's selling the car, you know, check for, like I said, the panel switch. Check if everything's in order, still working. Alright, so you've seen the inside, you've checked for stuff. While you're in there, actually get the chance to open up the hood with the hood latch and see how it feels, if the cable's okay and everything. And now we're gonna go check the engine. Here's where it gets tricky, guys. There's K2040Es and SR20s. You can look up the SR20 differences. The difference is the head. You can see the S14 has a notch as well as the S15 if you're buying an SR20. But if you have K2040E and if you try and buy a stock 240, here's what to look out for. It's pretty simple, but I missed it. I should have done more research on it. I thought they were all the same K2040Es. They're not. Alright, so we're here at the engine bay, and this is what you really want to look out for. Simple. It's 3 bolts on the top. 3 bolts mean it's from an S13. I know I have an S14, and like I told you, I missed out on it, but that's an S13 head. The other way to check if the bolts are shaved off or if they're missing any bolts, it's right here, this little corner. On an S13 it goes straight. On an S14, this side kind of pops out a little bit, and the whole head kind of pops out towards this side a little bit. Those are the key things. Also, you could check your distributor, but I was completely fooled because on this distributor, it doesn't have the 5th one, which S13s have a 5th one that go and route towards somewhere around here. You could put an S14 distributor on an S13 motor and it works fine. Let's say you do have a KA2040E S14 engine, but you suspect that, you know, it might not be completely original, or you just want to check. Right here on your bell housing, it's kind of hard to see. I don't know if I could get the camera in there, but on an S13, right about here, on an S13, it won't have a sensor on there. On the S14, it will have a sensor. It's the camshaft position sensor. It has, my car, an S13 engine with an S13 transmission, and my car used to be automatic. I believe it used to be automatic. It has a manual ECU, but the harness is still from an automatic one. And how do you tell that? Well, right about here. The harness itself has this sensor that actually should connect to the throttle body position sensor hole, but since this engine swap, I guess you could call it, is from a manual car, so it's blocked off, so there's no way of connecting that. The other reason I know it's probably automatic because it has this little connector thing, and I think this has to do with something with the neutral position or something like that. I'm not completely sure. Also, when you're on your engine, check, you know, aftermarket stuff. Mine has a Z32 MAV cold air intake with a Mishimoto radiator. You want to check if your battery has been relocated. Check for rust. I've spray painted it because I only had that color, but I got rid of the rust, shaved it off, and then spray painted it. And you want to check what kind of wires they use to relocate it to the back. Where did they run them, and if they're good quality. Because if you don't, you're gonna drain your battery every night. Mine was having that issue until I changed up the ground to the car. It's this one right here, and the connectors in the back. I'm going to show you that later. But like I said, check for sensors, anything that's loose. Check for horns if you still have your horns. And let's go ahead. Well, also check for any leaks on the brake booster. Mine kind of got burned a little bit from the exhaust, I guess. But check for that. Check for your clutch one as well. Alright, so we're in the back now, and we're going to check the trunk. Usually when you pull the lever, the trunk opens up on its own. Some 240s it pops open. That's because of the grommets it has right around here. I'd only changed 2. There's like 6 of them, but that's a later on thing. And also, in case your trunk doesn't open, that's one big thing to check. It might be these 2 bolts that are in here. You just move them up and down where the receiver or latch is. And then after that, you want to go in here and actually check for rust underneath. Mine was actually leaking from these screws right here. I used Flex Seal. If you've seen Flex Seal, there's a lot of things that people make fun of Flex Seal, but it actually works. And I used the clear one on each and every one of the bolts, and it was actually leaking from this one into the car every time it would rain, and it would just sit on the bottom. So just like how I did on the battery tray, I scrape it off with a wire wheel and painted it, and it's fine. Check for that. Check for leaks around here. Your lights. Check your lights, actually. Check if the lens are cracked or anything like that. The battery relocation. Make sure they use high quality connectors. These are really good connectors. If you're planning on doing a sub, you definitely need some of these. So that basically covers the trunk. You want to check your fuel in there, actually, and your light. And you're probably asking yourself, what do I mean by fuel? I mean, move all this carpet and check the cap if it's been moved or anything. You could ask the owner, have you changed the fuel pump for a bigger one, or if they changed anything over there, or if it just looks completely stock. Also, you can check your speakers in here with the light, and since mine is the SE model, you want to check if the amp is still there. And if it's not, they probably changed it, had a different aftermarket amplifier or subwoofer in the car. So check for those things. Alright, I know it's probably not the best way to show this, but you want to check your brakes, if it's the stock brakes, or if you have Z32 brakes, because people are going to sell you on, oh, it's Z32 brakes, it's an upgrade. Well, yeah, in a way it is, but you want to check if it's the 26 mil aluminum caliper, the 30 iron caliper, or the 30 aluminum caliper. And what I mean by 26 and 30, it's the space in here. You can search it online and you probably find the pictures, or I'll probably link it below. And you want to measure it if you can, or if you just ask the guy, hopefully people are honest. The 30 millimeter aluminum one is the one to go. It's the biggest, lightest, or you could go with, the Brembo 350Z brakes or other brakes out there. You want to check the condition of your brakes. That's the difference, is because when I got my car, I had the 26 millimeter and I switched them out for the 30. I didn't want to go way too big on it because I still am able to fit my stock SE wheel with the 30 millimeter caliper Z32 one. So I was trying to find forums to say if it does fit or doesn't, and it actually does fit. So don't be worried about that. But at the same time, every car is different, so keep that in mind. Now, obviously, if you're buying a completely stock one, you want to check for obvious stuff, obvious wear and tear. But if you're, just planning on drifting it, I guess the brakes are a big part, but also your interior is a big part as well. Alright, so you're in the car and you want to check for AC if they are selling it, that if the AC works. You want to go ahead and hit these buttons and check if the actuators move. You want to check for noise. So I hope the camera picks that up. You can actually hear when these move. You also want to hear it move when you switch it from cold to hot, as well as the recirculating air. All those things. Just check for movement in there. You want to check your radio, of course, see if the speakers work. Check for dimmers. Obviously, if you don't have an aftermarket one, check if cruise control work. Check if it still has the second throttle cable that goes to the motor, if you have cruise control. Other things, check if this stays on, if it doesn't fall off. Check if your mirror's there. Light works. It's a pretty basic car. Check if your power mirrors work, blinkers, flashers, everything basic. One thing that you should also check is your VIN number on the dashboard, and the VIN number inside. There's a silver plate. You can check that one, and on the chassis itself, if it hasn't been shaven off, let me show you guys actually. Alright guys, so around there's your plate. then there's the VIN number right over there as well. Also, oh, you can also check the hood. But down there, there's the metal plate, and then here's the right there where I'm moving my index finger. There's gonna be a chassis code, and it should match up with that one. So that's one thing to look out for, as well as the dash one that's there. But you're in the car, he's giving you the key, or he's probably sitting in the car. Don't let him turn on the car for a simple reason. First thing you want to check is that temp gauge, and also that clicking noise, because if it's missing that clicking noise, there's wiring issues, or they probably disconnected something, and that's a big deal when it comes down to cars. You really don't want to have wiring issues. But the point of this is to check the coolant temperature. See if they've already run it. You want a cold car to see if it has any starting issues. After you checked everything in your car, where's my keys? Okay, after you check everything in the car, it's time for a drive. So go ahead. If it's cold, or if it wasn't cold, you can spend all that time checking the car and wait for it to get cold. It might take some time, but you're going to be spending time talking to the guy and looking at the car. So let's go ahead, start up the car. You know, check for noises and stuff. When you're driving, this is pretty basic for any car. You check for noises, weird noises, stuff like that. I'm going to take you out for a drive, and we're going to check for, you know, any steering problems, any braking problems. You want to hit this car on bumps. You want to feel if it's gonna last on a bump, because if you drive it out and you hit a bump and the car falls apart after you bought it, you're not gonna want that. So that's obviously a good indication that the car isn't good. Or if you don't feel comfortable hitting bumps on the car, you know, hit the little light things. All right, so I'm at this is like faraway park. It's kind of a far drive, so let's get started. Turn on your AC, you know, check if the motor has any issues with the AC, if it resists anything. But go ahead and put in first gear, and we're gonna go for a drive. You know, shift every gear. Hear any weird noises? Since I did switch back to a stock suspension, it's not in the greatest shape in the back. I gotta change out the rear struts. But actually, oh yeah, I got everything. I got scared. I thought I left everything back there. But let's just go on this side of the road. Now go ahead and stop if you hear any squealing, any, like, you know, weird things. I almost left it in gear. That's why I jolted. It's a nice GTO. Wait, is that a GTO? I'm not sure. But yeah, you know, try shifting every gear if you can. Obviously, watch your speed limit. And like these little bumps on here on the road, you know, go ahead and put the car there. You see, it doesn't sound that bad. Everything seems to be in order. And shift every gear, like I said. That's third, fourth, fifth. Like I said, you want to go through every gear, feel the clutch. If it slips, if it grabs on too early, too late, you know, try to get a good feel of it. If it runs smooth, obviously this one's kind of loud because of the exhaust. The exhaust is kind of over the top. But like I said, steering, check for steering, take corners. Do a downshift when you can. Obviously you want to hit a stop or something. And feel the AC as well while you're at it, since you're driving. Feel if it gets cold. If it gets colder when you accelerate, because that means it probably is low on Freon. I think that's what happens. I'm not completely sure. You know, check your speedo. Check if the speedo works. Mine worked for a while until it kind of had problems afterwards. Because of a stupid fuse. So that's one thing to check. I'm not gonna go into that traffic. You know, check for any weird rubbing noises when you turn. It's a pretty quiet road. Perfect place to do this. Oh, there's the cop. And so check for stuff like that. Well, I hope this video kind of helped out some people out. I wish I knew some of these things that now I actually know, but like the motor and the transmission, those things you really need to know if you're serious about, you know, putting it back to stock or restoring it or even drifting it, knowing what parts to get, because some S14 and S13 parts are different and they're not interchangeable. Most of it is, but not everything. And, you know, just keep an eye out for simple things like leaks, oil leaks, coolant leaks, diff leaks, your transmission leaks, stuff like that, basic stuff. There's not much to it to this car, or these cars for 240SX. Mainly your engine transmission, because that's what we really care about in these cars, the performance and the chassis. So rust, you know, check everywhere for rust, especially the floor part of the car, the rails like I showed you. And also check for the engine compartment, see if there's any rust there. Coilovers, check if you have coilovers or stock suspension. I have stock suspension, but I also have coilovers. I switched out the coilovers for stock comfort. One thing, if you are planning on buying a 240, if it does have coilovers, it's going to be a rough ride. But, I mean, you're not going to daily a car, or if you are, then you might consider buying the stock suspension. It's a lot smoother. It did change up the car a lot, and you could easily buy some lowering springs and you get the same look. Well, in my opinion. But if you guys like the video, go ahead and share it, like it, subscribe if you haven't, hit that notifications button, and I'll catch you guys on the next video. I think I'm doing a couple of different things. I don't know yet. Yeah, that probably means more videos for you guys. But anyways, I'll catch you guys on the next video.